So, we've spent the last episode mapping out which industries are about to get shaken up: software development, legal, finance, the works. And if you're anything like me after recording that one, you might have felt a bit unsettled. Like, okay, change is coming, but how fundamental is this really? Well, grab that feeling because today we're going to poke at it hard. This is the episode where we stop talking about jobs and start talking about what jobs even mean. Because here's the thing: we've spent the whole series so far asking practical questions. What can agents do? How do they work? Who gets disrupted? But there's a bigger question underneath all of that, and it's the one that keeps me up at night. It's the question that nobody wants to sit with because it doesn't have a clean answer. And it's this: when AI can act, not just answer, what does that actually mean for us? For human agency, for purpose, for the whole concept of work? Let's start with something concrete: accountability. Who gets blamed when the agent gets it wrong? Because they will get it wrong. We've established that. Here's a scenario. Your company's using an agent to handle customer service emails. It escalates something it shouldn't. A customer gets fobbed off with wrong information. They suffer real consequences. They want someone to sue. Who's in the dock? The developer who built it? The company that deployed it? The manager who didn't review the outputs? Or are we just going to accept that agents are systems and systems fail and everyone shrugs? Here's the uncomfortable truth: the accountability gap is real, and nobody's solved it yet. And this isn't some distant sci-fi problem. It's a question that'll define employment law for the next decade. But okay, let's say we figure out the blame game. There's something else, and it's sneakier. It's the autonomy question. And I don't mean machine autonomy, I mean human autonomy. See, we keep talking about agents as tools, as assistants, as colleagues, but there's a slippery slope in that framing. Because when you delegate enough to an agent, at what point do you stop thinking for yourself? Not in some dramatic AI takes over way. I'm talking about the mundane, quiet erosion. You stop double checking because the agent is usually right. You stop learning a skill because the agent can do it faster. You stop making decisions because you've handed the judgment calls over, and maybe that's fine for tasks that don't matter. But what about the ones that do? What happens to human decision making if we outsource it gradually, piece by piece, until we've atrophied the muscle entirely? And this is where it gets philosophical in a way that makes people uncomfortable, because we are told constantly that AI will free us from drudgery, from repetitive work, from the boring stuff, so we can focus on what matters. But what happens when what matters turns out to require the very skills we stopped practicing? What happens when creativity becomes a muscle we didn't bother to maintain? Now look, I'm not here to tell you human creativity is dead. It's not. But I will tell you this: it changes when it's no longer necessary for survival. It changes when you're not forced to be creative to solve problems, to earn money, to literally stay alive. There's a difference between creative expression as a hobby and creative expression as a survival skill. One is optional. One shapes who you are. And that's the really uncomfortable bit, isn't it? The purpose question. Because for most people, work isn't just income. Work is structure. Work is identity. Work is the answer to what do you do? And when that answer becomes ambiguous or disappears entirely, what fills the void? We can talk about universal basic income all we like, but that's the mechanics. That's the logistics. What's the psychology? What does someone do with their days when their skills aren't needed in the market anymore? And I don't mean the lucky few who always had options anyway. I mean the millions of people whose work was their pride, their contribution, their way of saying I matter. That's not a problem you solve with a policy brief. That's a question about meaning itself. Now, I want to be clear about something. I'm not being doom and gloom here. I'm being honest. Because the alternative, the pink sky framing where everything works out and new jobs appear like magic, that's the comfortable lie. The truth is, we don't know how this ends. We don't know what most people will do when agents can do the heavy lifting. We might innovate our way into new purposes, new categories of work we can't even imagine right now, or we might not. And that's a genuine uncertainty, not a reason to panic, but a reason to think. Here's what I do know: the humans who thrive in this aren't the ones who pretend the questions don't matter. They're the ones who sit with the discomfort, who ask what only a human can offer, who find the things that don't scale, that can't be delegated, that require presence and judgment and moral weight. That stuff exists. It really does. We just haven't had to be explicit about it because work always demanded it. Now we'll have to choose it deliberately. So that's where we are. Uncomfortable, uncertain, but awake. Next episode, we're going to get brutally practical. We're going to ask who's actually safe, which roles survive, which ones are on borrowed time, and why the answer might surprise you. Because yes, this is all a bit heavy, but you wanted to know what's coming. And knowing means looking at it honestly. See you there.